Hello, everyone. Welcome to APH Virtual Excel Camp. This week is Career Camp, and it's built for 14 to 22-year-olds. So everybody is welcome. I hope you are comfortable. I hope you have access to your JAWS or ZoomText or whatever way you use to get access to a computer. You'll definitely be using it today. If you have any need for a license to JAWS or ZoomText, that is available for a free 1-year license. Please contact me and let me know. Also, you will have the ability at times during camp all week to have your camera on, but if you're going to have your camera on, I need your release form sent to me. If you are 18 or older and are making those decisions for yourself, you yourself have to turn that in so that I know it's okay to turn your camera on. So one more time, welcome to APH Virtual Excel Camp, this week, Career Camp for 14 to 22-year-olds. And I am going to stop sharing and I am going to turn you over to your instructors, Amber and Jen. Have fun, guys.
Hello, everybody. This is Amber.
And I'm Jen.
And we will be your instructors for Career Camp this week. I am going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can get started. Okay, so today is Career Camp Day 1, and we will be learning all about resumes. And like we said, I am Amber Happ, and I am a TVI and an O&M in North Carolina. And our other instructor is Jen, and she is a TVI in Florida.
Hi, everybody.
So we have a few camp Zoom rules today. If you want to unmute and you need to be called on and have a quiet background. If you have a question, go ahead and raise your digital hand. Let's everybody practice that. If you don't know how to do it and you're on a Windows, you can press Alt and Y. And if you're on a Mac, you can press Option and Y. Or on the bottom of the screen, there is an option to raise your hand.
I see Hayden's, I see Noah's, I see Casey.
Nice job. I see a few people have their hands raised. So if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and do that and we can call on you. Or if you'd like, you can write any questions in the chat and we will make sure that we go ahead and answer those for you. And you can go ahead and unraise your hand if you still have it raised. And next, you need to join with a name. If you don't join with a name, we're going to go ahead and rename you so that we know who we're talking to and who's participating. And then finally, the chat will only be open when we say so. We want to be respectful of our friends that are using screen readers. So for today, we have a few vocabulary words that we will go over. Our first one being resume, cover letter, application, and job. So if you don't know what those are, we will definitely make sure you know them by the end of camp today. So to go ahead and get started for Career Camp Day 1, we're going to play true or false. So our first true or false question is, a job is a paid position of employment. What does everybody think? Go ahead and write it in the chat, true or false. A job is a paid position of employment. All right, I see some trues coming in. Let's see, Noah, Connor, Darren, everyone's saying true. Nice work. Okay, so that is true. A job is a paid position of employment. Our next true or false, when you have a job, you have to work 40 hours a week. True or false? Let's see. When you have a job, you have to work 40 hours a week. What does everybody think? Oh, I see comments rolling in the chat. We have a few falses. A little bit of mixed responses, trues and falses. I love how everybody is going in the chat and writing what they think. That is awesome. Okay, so number 2 is a false. So you can work part-time or you can work full-time. And when I say part-time or full-time, it means that if you work part-time, you only work part of the day or just every other day or a few days a week. It doesn't mean that you work a regular 8 to 5 job. Full-time typically means that you work between 35 and 40 hours a week, depending on your job. And full-time doesn't mean that you have to work Monday through Friday. Your shifts could be moved all over the week. Like, for example, nurses sometimes work a few 12-hour shifts, but they still get to 40 hours a week, but they work less days. So it can be totally split up, or it can just be like your typical Monday through Friday working 40 hours a week. It really just depends what kind of career that you have or that you're working in. So number 3, once you have a job, you have to continue working on work-related skills. Is that true or false? Let's see it in the chat. Once you have a job, you have to continue working on work-related skills. Okay, I see a few trues, a few falses. I love everybody's responses. So once you have a job, you do have to continue working on work-related skills. You have to continually prove that you can complete the job. So once you get a job, it's not always easy sailing. You have to keep working and getting better. And we're just working on your skills. Because just because you're hired, there may be probationary periods that you work to see if you're a good fit for the job. Sometimes you work a few weeks and the employer could decide, I don't know if this is a good fit for you. So even though you got the job, you still have to work and prove yourself really throughout your whole life. You're always working to improve on those skills. Our next true or false was you can have a job at any age. True or false?
We've got 1 false. We've got 2 false, 3 falses. We got 1 true, 2 trues. Noah said false.
Looks like a mixed bag. So you can't have a job at any age, actually. So this one is false. Each state has different laws about the age that you can begin working. So it's important that you research whatever state you're in, the specific age restrictions for that state. So for example, in Florida, you can start working at 14, but other states you maybe have to be 15 years old to start working. And in addition to just the age, you may be limited on the number of hours that you can work each week. So you won't be able to work 40 hours a week if you're only 14 or 15 years old. So that's something to think about. So whatever state that you're in, it will be unique to that state. So if you're not sure, go ahead and do a quick search and on Google and see what states and what age restrictions do you have to start working. Okay, and we have a few more true or falses. So, true or false, people only volunteer because they don't have a job. What does everybody think about that? People only volunteer because they don't have a job.
Michael, Brianna, Connor, Noah, another Brianna all said false. Casey said false.
I love that. So that is false. Some people volunteer with the intention of eventually getting the job that they're volunteering at. Other people volunteer because they have free time and they want to be involved in an organization that they like, or they want to give back to the community. So it doesn't always mean that you're only volunteering because you don't have a job. It could be that you just want to be involved in your community and help out. So number 6, volunteering is an unpaid position. True or false? Volunteering is an unpaid position.
We got true, 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 true. So far, all trues. One false. Another false. True.
Okay. So that is true. Volunteering is unpaid. It's something that you gain experience in, and kind of just you may do it for fun or for pleasure. I know I volunteer at my local animal shelter sometimes and I get to walk the dog. So even though I have a full-time job, I still like to volunteer and work in my community.
Anna said some do have stipends.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, you may be able to get a stipend if you have a volunteer position somewhere. Has anybody here volunteered before? I'd love to hear of any places that you have. Go ahead and put that in the chat.
Brianna said that she has. Anna said yes.
Okay, so a few people have. That's great.
Evan has as well.
So let's move on to our next true or false. So volunteering is a good way to learn job skills. True or false?
Brianna said true. Evan, true. Noah said true. Connor as well. Anna just said depends. Casey said true.
Good. Yeah, so that is true. Volunteering is a way that you can learn super valuable skills like time management, relationships between coworkers, responsibility, managing your schedule. There's so many valuable things that you can learn, just even volunteering, because you're working in the community and you're getting out there, you're learning all these things that you may not have experience with before. So volunteering is a great option to get your foot in the door and kind of learn some of those job skills. And our last true or false is anyone can get a position volunteering somewhere. True or false?
True, false, true, depends, depends, true, false. Got a mixed set of answers here.
Yeah.
Some run background checks.
So anyone can get a position volunteering somewhere. So initially I had thought false, because you do have to apply for a volunteering position. You can't just go in and say, hey, I'm ready to volunteer. When can I start coming in? There may be a process, like Anna mentioned, running a background check. They want to make sure that you're right for the position that you want to volunteer for. So that is something important to keep in mind. Even if you're volunteering, you still have to apply for it and make sure that they're okay with you being there to volunteer. So now that we're done with our warm up for career camp, let's get into it. So where to begin? Before you can even apply for a job or volunteer position, you need a resume and sometimes a cover letter. So does anyone know what a resume or a cover letter is? I'd love to hear what everybody's thinking.
Michael said yes. Brianna said yes. Anna said yes.
Good. So some people may have heard of resumes or cover letters. So a resume is a document that lists your work experience, your volunteer experience, your education, skills, your strengths, achievements. It's kind of like a document all about you and all the wonderful things that you do. Oh, I love what Anna wrote. They're super annoying to write. They take a lot of time to write. So that's why you want to start with a resume and make sure that you have that ready to begin before you even start looking for jobs. You want to have that resume ready to go. And I mentioned cover letter. So a cover letter is a document that's sometimes submitted along with your resume. And its purpose is really just to introduce yourself and summarize your experiences relating to the job that you're applying to. So how do your specific set of skills relate to the job that you are applying to? So it's just a short introduction about yourself and how you could be helpful for that position. For today and for this camp, we're really just going to be working on resumes, but it's important that you know what a cover letter is, because you will see that word when you're applying to jobs. So what is in a resume? So people format their resumes so differently, but really what's important is what you include in your resume. Visually, it may look different to other people. You may include things in a different order than the next person, but everybody includes the same information, and that's really the important part. So first, you want to include your contact information. So your name, your email, and your phone number if you have one. And you want to include your education. So if you're comfortable, you can include your GPA and you can put that on there, but really you can just put your school name. And it's important to include dates and years on your resume. So for education, you can put the years that you attended your current high school or wherever you're at right now. So those are the first two things that we want to make sure we include in a resume. And also I want to note that it should be one print page long with about 10 to 12 point size font. So even if you aren't using print or you may use large print, that's just kind of somewhere to base off how long your resume should be. You don't want it to be 5 pages long. You want it to be concise and to the point. So just for a frame of reference, think about it being one print page long with about 10 to 12 point font. So in addition to your contact information and your education, you want to make sure that you include any previous or current jobs or volunteer experiences, and make sure you put those dates on there that you have participated in them. That is super important. Also, you can include any clubs or teams that you're a part of, because at this stage, you may not have had many jobs. You may have never had a job before or volunteer experiences. But if you participate in any clubs or teams, you can definitely put those on there, because as a team member, you're learning skills like how to work with other people, communicate, responsibility, time management. So all of these things can be included on your resume, and they're very important. And then also, if you have any skills, certifications, or achievements that you're proud of, you can include those. I know many high schools require you to be CPR trained. Are you CPR trained? You could put that on your resume. Maybe you're in an academy at your school and you've become certified in Microsoft Office. Go ahead and put that on there. Or even if you're very proficient in using Microsoft Word or Excel, all of these things can be useful. And if you're trying to fluff up your resume and make sure you include your strengths, these are things that employers will look for. So I'm curious, who is in a club or a team at school? And if you are, write which club or team you're in, because I'd love to hear what everybody's doing. There might be some opportunities for us to share maybe a club that you're in that could work for you if you have a vision impairment, but you've never thought about it, but you have a camper here that's been in a club. So go ahead and write that in the chat, or if you're in any clubs or teams. I see Brianna, she is on the executive board for Black Student Union. That's awesome.
Amber, your
Mhm.
mic is crackling. So wherever your hand is might be near your mic.
Oh. There we go. I think it might have been Jen's.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Lions Club. Oh, a climate change club. That one sounds so fun. I'd never heard of a climate change club. I wonder if other schools have that also. Maybe some of you are on a goalball team or in baseball. These could be things that you include on your resume. Or if you're a team captain, or if you serve on the board of something, if you're a secretary, treasurer, president of something, or even if you started a club or a team. These are all great things for high schoolers and people your age that you could put on your resume if you don't have any job experience. So even if you've never had a job before, you can still put things on your resume and kind of fluff it up. Oh, a Braille Club and Social Butterflies Club. I wonder what the Social Butterflies Club do. That sounds really fun. So these are all great options. So now we're going to look at a real resume. Okay. So on my screen, I'm sharing a resume that I made. So it's not perfect, but it's for Helen Keller. And at the top of the resume, I've included her name. So I have Helen Keller, and then her city and state where she's located, a fake phone number that I put in, and then a fake email also. But at the very top of the page, like I said, I've got her contact information. That is most likely where you want to put your contact information, at the very top. And I've also bolded her name and her phone number actually. So that's important that you've got that at the top. And I see in the chat, resumes sometimes do have special formats. So some word processing programs, they include templates that you could use that are already ready-made, and you just put your information in it. So you can choose one of those, and that may save you some time instead of formatting it yourself. Or if you don't have a word processing program that includes different templates for resumes, you can just open a blank Word document, just a blank one. And at the top of it, go ahead and put your name, and you can bold it. And then go ahead and put your city and state, your phone number, and your email. And those are all left justified on that page. And below that, there is a space, and then below that is experience. And experience is the heading for this next resume. And it is bolded also. So if you don't have that template, you can just kind of follow this one and make your own. So under experience, I've listed some certain dates, and it says September 1957 to current. And this is listing really just the time that Helen Keller would have worked at this position. And below the dates are the title and the company she worked for. So it was Doubleday, Page & Co., and her title was author. So she's got the date and the company and her title. And below that are just some bullet points. And like I said, these can all be formatted differently. So there is no right or wrong how they're formatted. It's really just the information that you've got in it. But I've kind of summarized some of the responsibilities that Helen Keller would have had at this job. And I've summarized it in the bullet points, and I've put, I follow deadlines set forth by my publisher. I manage the research for my novel topics, and I am knowledgeable in using a Perkins Braille writer. So these could be different things. So depending on the job, they could vary drastically, but this is just an example of some of the responsibilities that she would have had at this job. And below that is an older job. And I've got the dates. So we have May 1946 through August 1957. And then below that is the company and the title that she had at that company. And it's American Federation for the Blind. And she was a counselor of international relations. So after that date, company, and title, there are some bullet points that list her responsibilities there. And it says, I was responsible for traveling to 35 countries on 5 continents. I participated in several campaigns to raise awareness and support for the blind. I wrote and delivered numerous speeches during events. So as you can see, she's got all these responsibilities, but I've kind of just summarized the main and most important ones here. So try and make it to the point so that whoever is looking over this resume can just see the main details and the most important things listed about these jobs and how you contributed to them. After the work experience or volunteer experience is education. So education's bolded, and below that are just the dates and the college that she went to. She went to Radcliffe College in Massachusetts, and she received a Bachelor of Arts. And then below the education is just a quick summary of what she did there. It says, I graduated cum laude from Radcliffe College, and I was the first person with deaf blindness to earn a Bachelor of Arts degree. I studied politics and world events. So for you, if you're making your resume and you're in an academy at your school, I know some of those have them, you could say, I participated in the engineering academy or the STEM academy at my school. So it's you can kind of be creative here, but make sure you're listing that high school that you're in, or if you're taking community college classes at your local college, that could be something that you include here. And then she also had another post-secondary school that she went to, and it was the Cambridge School for Young Ladies in Massachusetts. And it just lists that after high school graduation, I attended Cambridge School for Young Ladies for 1 year to prepare for college. So this was the education portion. And below education, we've got another section of the resume that says skills, and skills is bolded. And under skills, we wrote, I am a fast learner and follow directions well. I am proficient in Braille and tactile sign language. In addition, I have received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1964 from President Lyndon B. Johnson and the Alumni Achievement Award from Radcliffe College in 1954. So these are just some of her many, many skills. And I know in my experience, under the skills portion of my resume, I write that I'm proficient in Braille, in UB, in Nemeth, in Music Braille. So I list all those skills that I'm proud of, and I want employers to know that I could be useful. And you can list any certifications here that you have, any sort of achievements that you've received. Are you on the AB honor roll at school? You can kind of be creative right here.
Brianna had a question.
Yeah.
She said, when you apply for jobs, will you need a high school and a college resume? So Brianna, you'll have one resume. You'll get to tie them in together and keep all your information.
Yeah, and I have probably the same resume format that I've had for several years, and I just update it as I get new achievements or if I get a new job. So this is something that could be a work in progress, something that you continually are updating when you get those new skills or when you participate in new sports or clubs. So it's definitely something that you can work on just for forever. It's something that you're
It'll
always
be a running
updating.
document.
Yes. So does anyone else have any questions about resumes? I loved how Brianna, oh, I see a hand raised. Isabel, do you want to unmute or unmute or write in the chat what you've got?
Zoom webinar, lower hand button.
Let me ask you something. What is a stipend?
A stipend? So a stipend is kind of like a paycheck, but it's a one-time thing of just some lump sum of money for doing something. So you can get a stipend for different volunteer experiences or different short-term things, like maybe being a camp counselor. Thanks for asking that, Isabel.
You're welcome.
All right, guys, so if you have turned in your form about turning your camera on and would like to turn your camera on, if you want to raise your hand, Miss Leanne will go ahead and turn on cameras for anyone who would like to.
Okay, so any other questions, you go ahead and raise your hand and I'd love to unmute you so we can get those answered. But like you can tell from this resume that I just shared, they can be very different. They can include different things, but what's most important is what is in them. So I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint. So now that we've talked about that resume, I'd love to hear what you would or would not change about that resume that we just reviewed. You can raise your hand and we can take turns unmuting.
Brianna, let me unmute her. There we go.
So I would not change the education because education is very important these days, and so I liked like how like she listed like the education because it just shows that um it shows like what you've learned, and like listing like her skills is like a good idea too, so that they can like be aware, oh, we're looking for this person with some the skills, and it's great that she has those skills.
That's awesome. I totally agree. Do you have any skills that you would list in your resume?
Yeah, so I want to become a kindergarten teacher. So some skills that I have is like um patience, creativity. I know like how strong verbal communication skills and like emails. Um those type or typing skills too, because it's like these days we're like online a lot. So I'll like list those skills to like help me as like a teacher, because like kindergarteners need like patience and creativity. And like I would list like my experience because like I had like jobs of working as a CIT and like opening the centers and closing down the centers and preparing like snacks and stuff. And then in high school I got like an internship as a as like invite to teach, where I get to teach the little kids. So I'll put that on my resume. So like I have strong like leadership skills, especially like in the secretary position for Black Student Union. Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that is amazing. You have so many skills that you could list in your resume. I love hearing that. Nice job.
Anna had her hand raised to speak next, and then Noah put in the chat that he wouldn't change anything, that it was so good. Anna, I've released it, so if you want to unmute, you are able to.
Yeah, so for the most part, if you have a graduate level degree or higher, you would not list any schooling below it, as to some employers it could be seen as padding. Yeah, you would just say, and for volunteering into employment stuff, unless they are super relevant, you would usually only list your last 5 or so. Oh, again, not to take up space, and so the employer does not feel that you're trying to pad your resume.
That is such a good point. I love how you said relevant. You want to include relevant experience. If you have a lot to put on your resume, that is, include relevant volunteer experience or relevant skills to that position that you're applying for. Thanks for sharing. That was awesome. Okay, anybody else? What would or wouldn't change about the resume? If you think of something, go ahead and put it in the chat.
Hayden said they would not change anything, and then Noah said he's taking it back. There was something little he would change. Wasn't Helen Keller a vaudeville star or something? That should be added.
Good point. Yeah, there's so many things that Helen Keller did that could be added. I tried to keep it brief, but she is a superstar, so I don't think anything I write about her would do it justice. But nice. So yeah, there you can make the resume by yourself, but I love somebody put in there, you don't reinvent the wheel. If there's an option to save time, use a template if it's available. I use a template personally. I think that makes it a lot easier. And Jen shaking her head, yes. It saves lots of time. So, and since we were talking about technology, it is so important that you are current on using accessible technology. So if you use JAWS, you want to make sure that you know all of your shortcut commands, because if it's taking you forever really to write a resume. You might want to catch up on those because you don't want to be taking too long looking up commands while you're in the work in progress of creating something. So definitely work on those skills, and same for ZoomText. Make sure you know those keyboard commands so that you can be proficient. And that's not just for resume writing, it's for when you're on the job. Everybody uses technology, and that's kind of where we're heading towards as a society. So you want to make sure that you have really, really strong technology skills. So after a resume, what comes next? So after you finish your resume, you're ready to transfer all of that information to a job or a volunteer application. But what is an application? An application is a formal request for a job. So has anybody submitted an application before or filled one out? I'd love to hear if you want to raise. Okay, I see someone, Jacob's raised their hand.
Brianna has, Miles has, and it's important to use Microsoft and Google products, which are very well used now. The other Brianna has not yet.
Okay. You may have filled out an application at school, maybe to participate in a club. Sometimes you have to do that also. So it may not be just for jobs or volunteer experiences. Oh, I see Hayden in the chat. I have, but not for a job, but for a camp. Yeah, you may have filled out an application for a camp. So applications kind of all look different, and they may be set up differently. Most of them are going to be online and they won't be paper, which is kind of nice. So you can access them wherever. But when you're filling out an application, it's kind of a repeat of your resume. For whatever reason, you still have to submit a resume, but you also have to put all of your information that was in the resume into the application. So when you've got that application, you're going to be listing all of your job experiences, any relevant volunteer experiences, your education, all of these things will be listed in an application. So that's why it's important that you have your resume filled out and completed already, so that when it comes time to fill out an application, your resume is already ready and you can just use information from that to put into the application.
And Miles had a really good question. He said, why do it twice then? So a lot of the time your resume is a one-page document, which it should be, and that's what you're going to actually take into your interview with you too. So the person who's actually speaking to you will have something to reference back to when they're asking you questions and when you're talking about the skills you have, whereas your application could be 3, 5, 7 pages, depending what job you're applying for and how much information they need from you for that position. It's kind of like an abbreviated version that can just summarize up your skills for somebody.
Okay, that was a great question, Miles.
And Noah said that he has gone into several locations and stores and restaurants with his vision teacher and practice filling out applications, but he hasn't submitted any yet.
That's great practice though. I love hearing that. And Noah, have your applications, have they all been the same or were they different formats each time? I'd love to know. If you want to unmute, you can, or if you want to write it in the chat. Okay, well, you write that in the chat. We will go ahead and keep on moving. So we are going to play a game. So have your fingers ready to write in the chat. Oh, here's Noah's comment. They basically were the same as far as I can remember. Also, I'm filling them out on the websites. Okay, that's good to know. So similar topics, I'm sure they ask some questions that are the same and they're asking for the same information. Good to know. So 2 truths and a lie. I don't know if anyone's played this before, but we're going to try it out now. So we have 3 statements here, and 2 of them are true and 1 of them is not. So we got to figure out which one it is. So number 1, in order to apply to a job or a volunteer opportunity, you need a resume. True, truth or lie? Go ahead and put that in the comments.
Hayden said true. Brianna said true. We got all true so far.
All right. So that is true. Nice job, everybody. Oh, I see a lot more truths coming in. Good. So yeah, a resume, it takes time to complete. So once you have it ready, you'll be able to apply to all those different positions that interest you. So number 2, a resume and a cover letter are the same thing. What does everybody think?
Hayden said false. Jacob said false. Miles said we had all falses. That's a lie. Noah said.
Nice. Everybody's thinking the same. So yeah, that's not true. As we know, we just went over. A resume is that document that lists your work experience, volunteer experience, education, skills, achievements, all of that. And a cover letter is a document that is sometimes submitted with your resume, and its purpose is mainly to introduce yourself and summarize your experience relevant to that job that you're applying to. So nice job, everybody. Number 3, a resume includes your work and volunteer experience, education, skills, strengths, and achievements. This should be an easy one. True, true.
All true so far.
Good.
True for sure.
Okay. Nice job, everybody. All right, we're going to do it again. So number 1, a cover letter's purpose is to introduce yourself and summarize your experience relating to the job that you're applying to. What does everybody think? Oh, I love those fast fingers.
True, true, true.
Good. Yeah, so that is true. Nice job, everybody. Number 2, everyone's resume should be formatted the exact same way. What's everybody think?
False, 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 false.
Good. Yeah, so a resume, it doesn't matter how it's formatted. Well, it does matter how it's formatted, but it's not going to look the same as everybody else's, and the formatting won't be the same. It's what's included in that resume. So it's mostly important what's in it. Next was, after you finish your resume, you can apply for a job. What's everyone thinking?
True, true. Noah said true. Brianna said true.
Yes, so true. After you get that resume completed, you can apply for a job. I know someone mentioned that it takes a long time, so it does take a while. So you want to make sure that you have that ready to go before you start applying, so that when you find a job that you're interested in, you can get that resume in and apply, because you're going to need that resume to look back on when you're filling out your application, because like I said, it includes duplicate information. So you're going to be putting in all of those dates and your experiences into the application. So it'll really save you time if you have that application, or if you have that resume already ready to go. So to speed up your application process. Nice job, everybody. So today's challenge is to create your own resume. So I want to hear from everybody. Are you going to create your own resume, or are you going to try and use a template that's already created for you?
Brianna said she's going to use her own. Darren said that he's going to use a template. Hayden's going to use a template. Miles is going to create his own. Kennedy's going to create one. Connor's going to use a template. Those of you who are going to create your own or use a template, where are you going to go to start this? Are you just going to go on the internet? Are you going to open up PowerPoint? Are you going to open up Microsoft Word? Where are we going to start this? We're going to say Google Docs. I got a Microsoft Word, Google Docs or Microsoft Word. Those are great. The best thing about Google Docs is it's saved in the cloud, so it's not going to get lost. Jacob already has one started on Google Docs.
Ooh.
Someone's gonna find a template and then on Google, and then Hayden's gonna find a template on Google and then write hers.
Nice. Sounds like everybody's got a preferred method that they can start creating their resume. And before you even get to that application process, when you're writing your resume, it's so important to get feedback. I still send my resume to my family, to my parents, honestly, or my coworkers. So can you look at this? So it's really important that you get feedback from others and have them check if your resume is, if it's looking good, because you want to make sure that all of your grammar is accurate and that your spelling is correct. You never want to submit a resume to somebody if there's spelling mistakes. That doesn't look good on you if you've got errors, because it's so easy to check spelling these days. You can ask Siri, you can ask Alexa, Cortana. So there's lots of ways to check for spelling if your word processing program doesn't do that, but most of them should. Does anybody have somebody that they're going to ask to check their resume after they're finished?
Kennedy's gonna ask her mom. That's who I go to. Miles is gonna have the computer check it. Sometimes computers do miss things, Miles, so it's not a bad idea to have a human of some, whether it's a teacher or someone you trust, even an older sibling, just read through and check to make sure that all the grammar is right. Because even though sometimes your spelling is correct, that doesn't mean you didn't accidentally put the wrong word in or something.
Mm-hmm.
Brianna said that her mom is an HR manager, so that's a good person.
Yes.
Noah's gonna have his parents or his vision teacher. Those are great people. A little help from Grammarly. That's a good idea if you can't find someone who can jump right in and do it for you.
Those are all great answers. Oh, and I see Isabel has her hand raised.
Isabel, I gave you permission to talk. You're welcome to unmute now.
Zoom webinar, lower hand button.
Do we have to create the resume today?
If you have time, I think it'd be great if you made it today, because we'll be building off of this topic for the rest of the week. So if you have your resume already complete by tomorrow, it'd be easy to move along with the rest of camp.
Okay.
Just spend a little bit of time. You don't have to go super in depth with it. Get a few ideas down. That way, when you're ready to use it later, you just have to plug in a little bit more. You don't have to make it a super long, cumbersome thing today. It's supposed to be fun and just kind of get your wheels turning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Good question. And I know sometimes when I'm working on my resume, I end up losing focus because I'm staring at the same information, and it's something that once you write a sentence so many times, it kind of just gets lost. So if you're starting to lose focus, take a break, have a snack, just give yourself some time before you go back to it. So if it's something that you're working on it for quite some time, make sure you take breaks in between it. And have somebody look at it when you think you're at a good stopping point, just asking them, hey, does it look good so far? Am I doing it okay? It's always helpful to get feedback. And I saw so many great answers, and I'm just thinking, a case manager may be somebody that you could ask for feedback too, or a VR representative that you're in contact with. If you're not comfortable asking a parent or a guardian, if you want somebody to look at it outside of your family, they'll be a little less biased. So there's so many people that you can ask for tips. And we went through all of that information that you can include, and there's the Helen Keller example resume that you can look at. And I think Jen actually has her resume that we can take a peek at too.
All right, sorry about that. I had to get it pulled up. So I went ahead and pulled mine up. This is one I used a couple years ago when I was applying to go back to my current teaching position. So it may look a little different than a first-time job one because mine was directly goaled to getting a teaching position. Whereas if I was writing it for a restaurant or a retail place, it's going to look a little bit different. So I have my name big and bold at the top, and then my address, phone number, and email, which is all that contact information we talked about including. And then I included my objective, which was getting a job as a TVI. I included some of the skills that I already have. And then I included my education. I put in just little blurbs about some of the, I put where I went to high school. And the main reason I kept where I went to high school was because I was applying for a position in that county. So I thought it might be beneficial because it just shows that I've like grown up in that area and I actually have ties to that community. It's not always necessary to add information when you have other degrees on top of it. So you can just decide what's relevant. It's back to that relevant information. You can decide if that's relevant or not relevant. And then I put in my experience and I put in anywhere I'd been a teacher. And I actually have probably more experience listed on here than it's necessary. But I did put in my where I worked at a pizza place because I was a manager at the time. And I thought that was a good place to put in that I had leadership experience. And then the same was for my lifeguarding experience. While the lifeguarding part itself wasn't relevant to being a teacher, I was a supervisor while I was there. So it was just one more example of how I had leadership skills. So that was why I chose to put that information in. But it's not always necessary to have that much because that goes back, 15 years at this point. And then for the position I chose, I did put in my skills and certification were that I know Braille, I know Nemeth, and I know UEB Braille. I have technology experience, and then I am certified as a lifeguard, CPR, first aid, first responder, and EVOC certifications. So just a list of anything that kind of seemed cool or different I thought in that area was good. Things that showed I put in energy to bettering myself, any extra skills, that kind of stuff you can have. Is there anything, as you guys are listening and glancing at this, that you would think is missing? Like what would you think to add to yours that maybe I didn't put? Because there's always more you can add. Nobody? There was no critiques? Oh, Brianna said putting some achievements on there. That would be really good. I really don't have any listed. Hayden wasn't too sure. Oh, Miles said writing about my passion for teaching. That would be good to put up in my objective, that I really enjoy teaching and like working with kids who are vision impaired. I put about my experiences, but I didn't really explain how much I enjoy it. That would be good.
I like that one, a passion for teaching. And we didn't talk too much about objectives, but I think that's a great idea to also, you can include a spot of objective on your resume and kind of summarize why you want to work in this position, why you think you'd be good at this job. Jen's got some great points in hers.
Casey said, I like how you added something a little extra with some colors and some Braille. So for anyone who can't see it, at the top of my resume, it's got 3 different colored blocks. There's a black block that my name is in white. And then there's a gray block off to one side that has a Braille letter J in it. And then there's a like light blue colored block that has all my contact information. And this format, I actually just got off of Microsoft Word and filled in all the information. So it wasn't something I created. It wasn't something, it was one of the templates that we were talking about earlier. And I just plugged in I did add the Braille J because that didn't come standard. But I just downloaded a little image off Google and added it in that way. So you can kind of spice it up, make it look, it's because your employer that you're trying to apply for is getting so many of these. If you can make it stand out a little bit, it's not a bad thing, especially if you can make it like the blue gives it a little bit of a bright color, so maybe they'll notice it. And I always try and print it on really nice paper when I turn it in, so it's like heavier duty, and maybe it'll just show that it's nice and neat and organized and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and they sell resume paper too. So if you're at the office store or Walmart, it's always in the paper aisle, and it's kind of like a thickness to cardstock almost. So it leaves an impression, like Jen was saying. It makes it stand out when you've got that in your hand. Like, oh, this doesn't feel like regular paper.
And that's what Miles said too. He said, make it remarkable, make it stand out.
Mhm.
How many people do we have here that are Braille users and Braille readers? Because Braille paper is another one that's good. It's a nice light tan color most of the time, and it's very so you could print on it really easily, and it's a heavier duty. So when you turn it in, I was just try and get the kinds that don't have the holes in it, because that's gonna look a little funny. Darren's a Braille reader. He reads and writes Braille. Miles is a Braille user. Good. So I bet you guys have some extra Braille paper laying around that you could use for your resumes. Hayden uses some Braille, but I bet you could still track down some Braille paper, Hayden. Braille paper can be expensive. That is true, Anna, but really you're only using a couple pieces, and if it's gonna get you your job, it's gonna be worth spending that extra few cents to get some really nice paper.
Mhm.
Noah is dual, he's Braille and print. Cardstock, said Miss Leanne. Yep, you can just buy the cheaper cardstock. You don't have to buy the stuff that's officially Braille paper, because it's pretty much the same thing. Anna is Braille too, absolutely no vision at all. Anna writes a lot. Brianna's Braille, Elizabeth is Braille. We got lots of Braille users
Yeah,
here.
we
I love it.
do.
Miles, yeah, it is definitely more expensive, and cardstock's a lot cheaper, so it's definitely one option for getting some a little bit cheaper way. It's just kind of to give it that heavier duty, so when you like stick in your car to take it to your employer, it's not like you set down one little thing on regular paper and it's going to be wrinkled or it may have a crease in it, whereas the Braille paper is a little bit more durable, and the cardstock, either one. Anna's puppy likes to destroy things, so that's good to keep a little bit heavier duty stuff around.
That's a good reason to have thick paper.
Kennedy Faith is print user. So you could just go get some like regular cardstock from your local store if you didn't have Braille paper around, Kennedy. Does anyone have any questions about writing your resumes? Is there anything we can help you guys with before we get close to closing down before the day? We got just a few more minutes, and we'd love to answer any questions you guys have about resumes. Kennedy, my house is like that too. She said she's got lots of weird papers in weird places around her house. I've got construction paper, Braille paper, cardstock. I know the feeling well. With COVID, internet tends. Oh, some places you can send it in electronically. Anna does have a good point with how much COVID is going on. And if you're sending it electronically, the only critique I would make is to send it in a PDF format versus a Word format, because if you send it in Word, it's editable, whereas PDF, it's you can still edit a PDF because technology is awesome nowadays, and doing it in an accessible PDF is to make sure that anyone who pulls it up is able to read it and know what it says. But if you send it in as a Word document, it's a little bit too risky that someone could accidentally click or accidentally delete a line, and they're missing a whole chunk of your life that you thought was important for them to know. What should I do if I haven't participated in any clubs or teams? Do I leave the area blank? Yeah, you can definitely leave areas blank, or experience doesn't always have to be work experience or volunteer experience. If you've ever babysat a sibling when you're first writing your original resume, that could be something that could be helpful. If you've ever helped a parent do X, Y, and Z jobs, if you've ever gone out and mowed the lawn, just any skills as your first resume to show that you're a hard worker, any skills that show that you're responsible. When you're first building it, you aren't going to have the list of experience that someone who's been working for 15 or 20 years is going to have. You could say that you've been on the swim team. Yeah, because to be on a swim team, you've got to be committed. You've got to be responsible. You've got to be a hard worker. You've got to show up on time. You've got to be punctual. All those skills are things that an employer really would look for. Most computers, when you download a Word document. You don't have to send it as a PDF, Anna. You're right. Most Word documents, when they're first emailed, are locked. That is true. It's just, if you really want it to look nice and you like the way your resume was formatted when you sent it, and that's exactly how you want an employer to see it, if you transfer it into a PDF format, it's locked in that place. And when you send it, it's going to send the exact same, and it's going to look visually how you wanted it to look for that employer. Could you put it in a spreadsheet? I don't see why you couldn't use like an Excel format. You just want to make sure that it's easy to read, because it's supposed to be a quick, something that your employer can glance at. So if it's like too broken up into the little boxes, you'd want to make sure you spread the boxes out real big, so like it's still fluid. And I see Miss Leanne's face, so I think that means we're out of time for today.
You are out of time for today. It is the top of the hour. So I want to say thank you for joining us. Be ready for tomorrow, but you do have an extension activity that will come in the email soon, with also a link if you want to rewatch this to remember all the different things that were talked about as you are building your resume. So I wish you luck. So thank you, Jen and Amber. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for closed captioning for providing us our captions. See you all tomorrow.